Your one click on the subscribe button makes a huge difference. Thank you for your kind support.
Louis Theroux's documentary The Settlers takes viewers into the heart of one of the most contested and politically charged areas in the world, the West Bank. Through Louis's lens, we explore the lives and beliefs of Israeli settlers who see themselves as carrying out a divine mission, juxtaposed with the lives of Palestinians bearing the brunt of this expansion. The documentary seeks to shed light on this complex and volatile environment, asking critical questions about ownership, belief, legality, and survival, while providing intimate accounts from both sides of the divide. The film begins by plunging viewers straight into the West Bank, an area occupied by Israel since the Six-Day War of 1967 but recognized internationally as Palestinian territory. Louis opens up a dialogue that is likely to be uncomfortable for many, navigating the physical spaces and emotional landscapes of an issue that sees claims rooted in both modern geopolitics and ancient history. One of the first focal points is the perspective of the settlers themselves, Jews who have moved into this territory, believing they are reclaiming land promised to them by God. These settlers are not just ordinary citizens. Many are driven by religious fervor and a conviction that they are fulfilling a biblical prophecy. For them, this land is not simply the West Bank, it is Judea and Samaria, the historical heart of Jewish identity. This framing is crucial in understanding their actions and mindset. One of the key figures Louis meets early in the film is Daniela Weiss, often referred to as the godmother of the settler movement. Daniela is charismatic, articulate, and unyielding in her belief that Jews have a divine right to the land. For her, the argument is not about politics or legality. It is about a religious commandment to inhabit the land of their forefathers. Louis tries to question her on the ethical implications of displacing Palestinians, but she brushes off these concerns, arguing that Palestinians do not have any rightful claim to the land and should leave. Her demeanor and rhetoric are striking because they lay bare the uncompromising nature of the settlers' ideology, which is bolstered by political support at the highest levels of the Israeli government. This level of government backing becomes clearer when the documentary highlights figures like Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's Minister of National Security. Historically a controversial figure linked to racism and extremism, Ben-Gvir is now part of the ruling establishment. His presence signals how once fringe ideologies have moved into the mainstream. Settler activities that were once viewed as radical are now protected and even encouraged by the state. This shift underscores a deep entanglement between religious ideology and state policy, blurring the lines between what is legal and illegal, and pushing the conflict into even murkier waters. The settlers operate with the understanding that the army and police are on their side, which emboldens them further. The documentary is not just about the settlers, though. Louis also spends significant time with Palestinians whose lives are directly impacted by the presence of settlements. These individuals share harrowing accounts of violence and intimidation. Settler outposts often start as small encampments, just a few caravans or tents, but quickly grow, consuming Palestinian land and resources in the process. Palestinians describe how their farmland has been seized, how they live under constant threat of attacks by settlers, and how the Israeli military does little to protect them. Instead, the army often appears to facilitate settler activities, enforcing their presence through checkpoints, curfews, and even demolitions of Palestinian homes. One of the most heart-wrenching moments comes when Louis visits a Palestinian family whose olive trees, their livelihood, have been burned by settlers. The olive tree, a potent symbol of Palestinian identity and resilience, is targeted deliberately because it carries not just economic but also cultural significance. The destruction of these trees represents an attempt to sever Palestinians from their land, stripping away one of the few things tying them to their heritage and history. These stories of loss and displacement paint a grim picture of what life is like for Palestinians in the West Bank. Through these interviews and encounters, the documentary highlights the asymmetry of power and the pervasive sense of injustice. The settlers are armed, organized, and state-supported, while the Palestinians are largely unprotected and left to face these incursions on their own. The settlers justify their actions by invoking religion, while the Palestinians point to international law, which deems the settlements illegal. This dichotomy of perspectives underscores the intractable nature of the conflict. While settlers see themselves as pioneers reclaiming sacred land, Palestinians see them as invaders stealing their homes and erasing their history. Lewis also unpacks the broader geopolitical context surrounding the conflict. The documentary touches on the October 7, 2023, attacks by Hamas, in which hundreds of Israelis were killed and taken hostage. This event becomes a flashpoint that further intensifies settler activity in the West Bank and Gaza. Settlers use the attacks to justify accelerating their expansion, arguing that reclaiming more land is the only way to ensure security for Jews in the region. The timing of the documentary is significant because it captures this moment of escalation, where the rhetoric of security and survival is used to mask what critics call an aggressive land grab. One particularly jarring scene takes place at a gathering of settlers advocating for further expansion into Gaza. This event is a mix of political rally and festival, complete with workshops teaching settlers practical skills for establishing new outposts. Among the attendees are senior political figures, lending legitimacy to the idea of resettling Gaza, despite the region's fraught history and the devastating toll of the ongoing conflict there. Lewis tries to question participants about the ethical and practical implications of their plans, but the responses are often dismissive or defiant. For them, their religious texts provide all the justification they need. Not everyone in Israel agrees with the settlers' vision, though, and the film briefly explores dissenting voices. At the Gaza resettlement event, Lewis encounters a group of Israeli protesters calling for a ceasefire and the return of hostages. These individuals represent a different vision of Israel, one that seeks coexistence and peace rather than domination and expansion. However, their voices seem drowned out by the broader nationalist and religious fervor that has taken hold. As the documentary progresses, it becomes clear that the settlers are not stopping at the West Bank or even Gaza. Plans are already being discussed to expand Jewish presence across all of what was historically Palestine. These ambitions raise troubling questions about the future of the region. Where do Palestinians fit into this vision? Will they be pushed out entirely? And if so, what does that mean for the idea of a two-state solution, which has long been the cornerstone of international peace efforts? The final scenes of the documentary are perhaps the most poignant. Lewis revisits some of the Palestinians he met earlier, who express a deep sense of despair. They feel abandoned by the international community and powerless in the face of settler aggression. For them, the idea of justice or resolution seems increasingly out of reach. The settlers, on the other hand, are buoyed by their faith and political momentum. They speak with confidence about their plans to expand further, convinced that they are on the right side of history. The ending of the documentary leaves viewers with more questions than answers, which seems to be Lewis's intention. There is no resolution because the situation itself is unresolved. The conflict is not just a battle over land, it is a clash of narratives, identities, and worldviews. The settlers frame their actions as fulfilling a divine mandate, while Palestinians see them as part of a colonial project aimed at erasing their existence. Both sides are entrenched in their positions, and the prospects for reconciliation appear grim. The Settlers is a deeply unsettling documentary because it forces viewers to confront uncomfortable truths. It challenges the simplistic narratives often presented in media coverage of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and exposes the layers of complexity that make this situation so difficult to untangle. At its core, the film is about power, who has it, who doesn't, and how it is used to shape the landscape and the lives of those who inhabit it. The themes of the documentary resonate beyond the specifics of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It raises universal questions about nationalism, identity, and the use of religion to justify political and territorial ambitions. It also touches on issues of displacement and the human cost of conflict, themes that are sadly all too common in many parts of the world. By embedding himself in the lives of settlers and Palestinians, Lewis gives these abstract issues a human face, making them all the more impactful. The documentary also serves as a sobering reminder of how narratives and ideologies can shape reality. For settlers, their story is one of redemption and return. For Palestinians, it is one of dispossession and survival. These competing stories are not just words, they manifest in physical actions, policies, and structures that define the lives of millions of people. The film forces viewers to reckon with the consequences of these stories and to question which version, if any, aligns with notions of justice and humanity. Ultimately, The Settlers does not offer solutions, nor does it claim to. Instead, it serves as a vital document of a moment in time, capturing the tensions, ambitions, and struggles that define the West Bank today. It is a call to pay attention, to question, and to grapple with the difficult realities of a conflict that shows no signs of abating. The film leaves viewers with a sense of urgency, a need to understand the forces at play, and a recognition of the profound human toll this conflict continues to exact. It is a film that lingers long after the credits roll, compelling viewers to reflect on what they have seen and what it means for the future of one of the most contested regions in the world.